So it seems like with each new popular fandom that arises, the pure and utter venom that exudes from certain corners of the internet grow even more toxic and even more enabled to skulk out from their recesses and try to force those responsible for the supposed favourite media to bend to their will. And I think we're all more than a bit fed up with it. Hello everyone, my name is fionapollo and I'm an artist, animator and a frequent lurker of the indie animation space where many original projects are being worked on and are occasionally rising in popularity to the point where they are beginning to compete with bigger, more influential studios like Disney and DreamWorks. Many former artists and animators of companies have even opted to turn to the indie scene as pitch after pitch, project after stunning project are turned down or terminated, all in the pursuit of profitability. So this can make it all the more of an emotional landmine when even after you manage to stick it to these companies and create a show that experiences a monumental degree of success and adoration, for the fans to then turn against you because you dare to not adhere to their every whim. The latest in a line of cases involves Gooseworx, the creator of the amazing digital circus, who committed the unforgivable sin of confirming that Jax and Pomni, the main characters of the show, are the main characters. Yeah, it's about as ridiculous as it sounds, and it sucks. It's a sobering reminder that no matter what you create or how well-intentioned you are, for some people, nothing you do will ever be good enough for them. And those people, though smaller numbers, are unfortunately often the loudest in a given space. I feel like I'm endlessly repeating myself when I say this on my platform, but no one should have to deal with this. No one should have to experience a breakdown or shut down their social media or be antagonized for biting back against people whose sole mission, it seems, is to talk down to you as a means of making themselves feel more important. Social media and the rewarding of bad behaviour has enabled far too many bad apples into thinking they can get what they want if they act entitled enough. I want more than anything for the showrunners, animators, voice actors, and other crew members of all these amazing projects I see online to be able to thrive. But if the reward for all of that hard work is an onslaught of verbal abuse, doxing threats, accusations of misconduct, and other bad faith actions from the people who claim to love these stories just as much, then what's even the point? Like, no one wants to put up with that nonsense. So I just kind of wanted to look into all of what went down and talk a bit about the impact it's having and whether there's anything we can even do, because this is not fair to the people these fans claim to support, and these indie creatives don't have to stand for it. I'll be honest, I know I may be unintentionally feeding into this as well by covering it in a YouTube video, since there are already tens of people who have hopped on the bandwagon, but that's kind of a catch-22 situation on that front. It's still hugely important, in my opinion, to call this stuff out when it happens and to remind people that no one has to put up with an entitled person's tantrums all because someone else said something you disagree with. Sorry, this was a bit of an unexpected upload, so I'm just gonna get into it. If you like what I'm saying, then subscribe, I guess. Feel free. I don't really care right now.
Be nice.
So what happened? From what I can piece together, Gooseworx made an assertion on Reddit that Pomni and Jax from their show The Amazing Digital Circus are indeed the focus characters of the story, just like we were all kind of anticipating. Except for some reason this basically broke the dam on a tidal wave of criticism and debate from supposed fans who wish for the other characters to get a bit of the spotlight as well. Obviously, as the show is nearing its final episode, people are probably at their highest emotional attachment to these characters, and they're kind of anticipating a variety of things for the finale. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem with it though is that it does not excuse people acting like they know more than the show's creator and basically culminating in a debate that very quickly devolved into threats of violence, online harassment, and other such issues. This, along with some external factors, caused said creator to experience a breakdown and shut off her Reddit account, though it's important to note that Goose never directly states that this harassment was aimed at her, and I'm not about to go looking because I don't use Reddit and I'm not about to start now. But from the sounds of what a few people were saying, I wouldn't be surprised if a few people did. This then spilled into other social media platforms, including Twitter, where Goose posted the following: I have considered never touching this franchise again with a 10-foot pole, which of course then sparked another wave of discussion surrounding the whole situation. Thankfully, it seems that the majority of people, including other showrunners and artists, spoke up to profess their support for Goose, but what was equally concerning is that Goose's experience isn't exactly an isolated event. Even Matt Braley, the creator of Amphibia, an exceptional individual who not only had to break the news recently that DreamWorks shut down a project he was working on with Rebecca Sugar, all because they didn't think it would be profitable, but who has also taken it upon himself to work on an indie show of his own called Clara and the Below, quoted Goose's original post and said this: on a YouTube interview, I casually suggested that the Amphibia trio weren't really the greatest of friends and looked down on one another sometimes. It's the only time I got hate mail, people calling me a fucking moron and that I don't know my own characters. I just shut up after that. Parasocial attachment to fictional characters and the inability to admit that a character can be in the wrong sometimes has become so intense that even the people who create these beloved characters apparently aren't allowed to give them flaws or anything that would make them the slightest bit unlikable. Do you guys not realize how antithetical that is to storytelling? Many characters need flaws, they need negative traits, they need moments of vulnerability where they aren't portrayed as the good guy. Otherwise, everything just falls flat. But as well as that, just because a character doesn't get as much focus as others in a show doesn't mean that they're not worth caring about or that you should try to force that inclusion by essentially bad-mouthing the creator. These are people. They're not nameless faces behind a screen. This is not something we should be debating or anything like that. And I know we're mostly talking about cartoons here, but I find it pretty ironic that during my studies into animation, it was drummed into us to not undermine your audience's intelligence no matter the age group that you were creating for. But now, all of a sudden, following the decline of media literacy and the lowest recorded attention spans thanks to social media dependency and the corruption of reliable information thanks to AI, it's almost like a switch has flipped and people can only seem to appreciate most media at its most surface level, and it stinks. People don't want to dig for nuance, and they especially can't seem to keep their cool when they perceive something as a slight, and I really hate it right now. I never really liked the whole insinuation that people are becoming too sensitive, but that was back when it was being used against people seeking out therapy or wanting others to not use slurs. This is something else, and honestly, yeah, I think a lot of people are getting far too sensitive when it comes to media debates, especially when it involves people who are not real. And if this continues, it's only going to get worse. And the most upsetting part of this, Goose isn't even the first to experience how cannibalistic online fan bases can be. And by all accounts, what went down on Reddit isn't even the worst that's been observed. You know what's funny, but also not, it's actually really frustrating, is the fact that a lot of these fan bases that end up having extremely toxic tendencies, and of which end up directing much of that venom inwards, are often franchises headed by female creatives. Why is that? Well, if you want my opinion, it's a very interesting mix of things, but one of the bigger factors is that female showrunners tend to try harder with being inclusive, and often end up with the word woke being slapped onto their properties by outside parties. This then not only antagonizes the audience and baits them into interacting with trolls, but it also creates this weird situation of the fandom trying to police itself by holding its members to a specific standard that not everyone can hold or maintain. And thus, when people fail to meet those standards, some infighting is bound to happen that can on occasion spill out into something far more insidious, such as what we've seen recently. Think whatever you want about her, but someone who knows about this ugly side of fandom is definitely Vivzy Pop, the creator of Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. A controversial showrunner, sure, with ample amount of allegations that have surmounted over her period of time as an active online media creator. While we aren't diving into this specifically, as that has its own laundry list, and frankly, the contents of that is dusty as hell, Viv did end up giving her own 2 cents on the situation unfolding around Gooseworx. She posted her own set of tweets which stated the following: I go back and forth and shutting up forever about dumb shit said online and actively wishing I could virtually punch people in the throat for the nasty shit they say to creators online, lol. Some of y'all do not deserve the grace creators are expected to give to you. Also, it always seems to be women who piss off the internet to a ridiculous degree over absolutely nothing. Interesting. We have actual fucking pedophiles and monsters in power, and these people get more mobilized to virtually beat the shit out of some women who made something they don't like or something. It's fucking insane and needs to be called out for what it is. Fucking bullshit. Use that energy to call your fucking representatives. Holy shit, use your insufferability for good, I am begging. My best advice to creators nowadays, especially women, is to stand up for yourself and protect your peace. Fight for your ideas and don't let people discourage you. They could never be you. Live your dreams. Last thing I'll say before going to bed, a creator being cringe or unprofessional or annoying is not somehow justification to treat them badly. You are allowed to be critical of someone's behavior, we all are, but I see it used to excuse such genuine cruelty. It's not a crime to be openly human. I see people use it as a way to circumvent their own shitty behavior, and I'm sorry, that's fucked up and hypocritical. Just treat humans like humans. It is telling the amount of harassment Vivzy gets, despite the fact that she and Brandon Rogers are the main joint writers behind Hell of a Boss. It's not just Viv, and a lot of people seem to forget that. If anything, Brandon Rogers is a spearhead in the raunchy humor and crass dialogue that Hell of a Boss employs as a narrative technique. Sure, Viv might have the final say, but she is not a one-woman band. But oh my god, she lives rent-free in so many people's heads that it is sometimes legitimately worrying. Viv has been online for a very long time, but she has received so many threats and accusations, and that should not be something that anyone has to deal with. I've spoken about some of Viv's controversies in the past, and if anything, after seeing all of this going down again, it just reinforces one of the main takeaways from them, and that is that these people are strangers to us, and that it it can be really difficult to parse what is truth and what is lies. I found out shortly after my last video on Viv that the main person pushing a bunch of allegations had a history of harassing other showrunners online. These are human beings who, yes, we might have a glimpse into the lives and actions of thanks to them having social media, but they are fallible beings, and even the kindest person will have some posts on their socials that a malicious individual can use to manipulate others in order to push certain agendas. I'm fully aware of the controversy surrounding Vivzy. I've covered some in the past, but ultimately, I just don't feel able to collate the necessary information in order to pass a moral judgment. I'm a fucking YouTuber who talks about cartoons. That is not my ballpark. Oh, and that's another thing. Stop looking to YouTubers and TikTokers for moral guidance. Anyone whose job it is to talk at you through a screen are the worst possible groups to get that kind of stuff from. And it's very obviously not working anyway. If we want to go a bit further back when looking at all of this, we also have Rebecca Sugar. So, fun fact, I have a new series on my channel called Inspiring Animators where I cover a bunch of animators' careers because I was sick to death of only covering negative shit, and I actually looked at Rebecca Sugar in one of these videos. I'm very aware of the fact that I've been doing a lot of glazing for them the past few weeks, and you know what? Considering how completely out of touch some of the criticisms towards her are, I don't really care. From that video, I had one person saying I should take it down because she drew NSFW drawings of the main characters from Ed, Edd and Eddy. If a couple of NSFW drawings from when she was a teen equates to someone being the scum of the earth and deserving of being deplatformed, then to be honest, I think you need a phone curfew. I wish this could be the worst possible thing a person could do between all the grooming and predator allegations I see online. If you knew even half of the depraved shit that so many animators in the industry draw just for the sake of it, and not even when they're in a similar age bracket as the characters, which Rebecca was, and that causes you to never want to look at their works again, then you would never be able to watch cartoons, period. Here's a tidbit for you. A lot of animators who are under contract with specific companies, such as Disney, will draw copious amounts of obscene drawings as a form of rebellion due to a clause in their contract stating that any drawings produced during this time belong to the company. It's a way of ensuring Disney can't profit from sketches these artists create, and yes, that includes drawings of underage characters like the Disney princesses, which personally, I would be more sympathetic to the general public being disgusted by. Rebecca is no stranger to critique and fandom, but Steven Universe especially was arguably a blueprint in fandom retaliation and hostility to those who create the media they consume, with several standout incidents in both the fandom at large and how they treat the creators. A huge example being the accusation that Rebecca Sugar, a Jewish woman, was a Nazi sympathizer in her portrayal of the diamonds at the end of the series. Although this was obviously the result of a very loud voice from one particular video, similar sentiments were being echoed at the time of the finale's release by nature of how it went down. There is plenty to critique about the finale, for sure. Nobody is ever saying criticism isn't warranted, it's needed for stories to develop, but nobody can say that the ending wasn't built up. What was so concerning though is the amount of vitriol involved. Going to the nth degree of hostility without actually taking a moment to realize what these connotations of the words that are being chosen mean. You can just say the ending handled something bad, this is why, and this is how I would improve it, without saying that a show about dismantling the core of abusive families made by a Jewish woman is about giving fascists a pass. Does anyone else hear just how ridiculous that sounds? Oh, that person forgot to hold the door open for a person behind them. Clearly, they're a narcissistic psychopath. Please tell me you all comprehend just how unhinged of a jump that is in logic. And it wasn't just Rebecca who was in the line of fire with this. So this was some years ago, but it shows the culture that permeates around fandoms and animated shows. A crew member on Steven Universe called Jessie Zook, who worked on the show, ended up deleting their Twitter account due to fan harassment. Although we can't know the specifics of why they went offline, from the Steven Universe subreddit speaking about the incident and an article by Gizmodo covering it, the episode beta had been leaked and apparently showed minor ship tease moments of Lapis and Peridot. This led to Zook understandably being frustrated with the leaks and tweeting about it, asking fans to watch the show legally. This of course led to a backlash with fans accusing Zook of queerbaiting, as the show also around this time did a bit of ship teasing with the Amethyst and Peridot, but then it got to the point where they ended up deleting their Twitter account after all the harassment. The fact that there are now 4 examples of this going on is 4 too many for my liking, and as much as I wish this could be it, that people would come to their senses following the Gooseworx incident, I'm not quite that naive. So how do you mitigate something like this? I've seen a fair few discussions floating around as to what the solution to this would feasibly be. You're never going to be able to get rid of it, since the line between online debates and harassment continues to be the subject of debate. We all know that calling someone stupid over a fictional franchise is bad, but for some reason, especially following the phenomena of media entities giving in to fan demands following internet backlash, these methods are so much more frequent now. Some people have suggested creators taking a step back from social media and limiting their exposure or involvement involvement. And while I get that from the perspective of looking after your mental well-being, this plays a bit too heavily into the issue of victims of bullying being ousted from certain spaces for my liking. Why should the creators be the ones that have to leave? That's not exactly feasible for everyone, especially not a creator who isn't as big or well-known as the likes of Gooseworx or Vivzy, and has to do a lot of the heavy lifting of promoting and talking about what they're working on. If every single person did that, then the people inciting this harassment have won, and they're gonna feel vindicated in their actions, and guess what? It's gonna make them do it to more people, because if it's effective against huge creators with millions of followers, then what chance does a small fry have? Of course, there are some things you can do to mitigate your exposure to unnecessary amounts of criticism. For one thing, it's common knowledge to never search your own name unless you want to become a nervous wreck about your every single move in the online sphere. Don't do that, I wouldn't recommend it. But for the most part, while probably well-intentioned, the whole leave social media advice is pretty terrible. Getting people they disagree with to back off is exactly what a lot of these trolls are looking for to convince themselves that they're on the winning side, so fuck that, quite frankly. I can only suggest what's worked for me so far, and that's mostly just to stay in your own lane, moderate your spaces, don't be afraid to delete shitty comments or block people who are giving you trouble, and only speak on stuff if it is something you truly feel strongly about, but you are also actually equipped to speak on. Don't hop on a bandwagon to shit on something without doing your own research first. So yeah, sorry, bit of a rambly video, but I just really needed to get my thoughts out for this because, believe it or not, I care a lot about the animation space, and while yes, sometimes people should be held to certain standards, these creators are in the same situation as many of us and are just doing what they love in whatever way they can. Even a modicum of compassion goes a long way. But in any case, thank you for watching, and if you liked what I had to say, then please consider liking and subscribing. I upload every 2 weeks, I talk about animation in the art world, I delve into media tropes, and I have a series looking at a bunch of famous and inspiring animators. TLDR, if you're getting angry about fictional characters, please go outside, touch some grass, read a book. Please just do anything instead of festering in your own room about this shit. It's not worth it. Alright, that's it from me. Thank you to my patrons. This video probably came as a bit of a surprise to you guys. Don't worry, it came as a surprise to me too. Thank you to my tip jar supporter, Pedanticat. Thank you to my YouTube peeps, Manuel Exon Gonzalez, Mystic Mind, Lauren R, Ash Valentine, Lonim the Hare, Craig, Edboy, Stefka's Doodles, and Why Not Warrior. And of course, an extra special thank you to my indie production supporters, Morgan LaFade Thin, Matty A, Kiyoshi, and Roundcat. If you're interested in joining the Patreon, a link can be found in the video description. Stay safe, everyone, and I will speak to you all very soon, and please just be nice to each other. Alright, I'm gonna go. Bye!